Welcome to Powrup, the podcast that uncovers the unique challenges women leaders face today. Join your hosts, Nat and Kristen, as we dive into the tough topics and provide actionable insights you can apply right now. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes.
Okay, so we've been meaning to talk about this for a while now, but I think it really triggered this week when I was doing some exercise with my girlfriend and we're both puffing and panting and feeling absolutely weak. And I said, Kristen, let's actually get onto this period hacking topic because it's starting, the more I notice it, the more I realize how much it actually does impact my life.
Well, and billions of other women.
Billions of other women. But it is funny because it's something that we're talking about period hacking today, cycle syncing, biohacking, there's a whole bunch of names for it. Funnily enough, when we started looking into it a couple of days ago seriously and doing some research, the menstrual cycle is one of the least researched parts of humans. Which probably shouldn't surprise us, but it does.
No, I know. It's like add it to the list of yet something else that is overlooked. We already know we've been overlooked in product development for decades, actually probably a century now, right from the development of a car to phones to, even services. We even talked about kind of Uber back in an earlier podcast and safety concerns when that first launched for women. I mean, who would have anticipated we have distinct needs? But it's not only that, but we know that in the medical profession, women are overlooked. Our symptoms are ignored. In fact, I've been watching all the rise of this ADHD and that women in their 40s and 50s now are only being diagnosed because their symptoms weren't similar to what you're typical. When you think ADHD, you think wiggly boy, don't you? And so women, they can struggle with focus, they can struggle with task completion, and so that would be chalked up to a whole host of things other than ADHD. So only now are they being diagnosed. And so overlooked in the medical profession, this is yet another example of something we experience for, 30 plus years, right? And so or more.
No, and I think we can't talk about building a women's leadership platform without actually trying to destigmatize some of these conversations because, I don't know how long ago it sort of started to change, but my entire life growing up, they used that stupid blue fluid on any period ad. Do you remember that? And then there was a big movement a couple of years ago. But there has been this real sense of women, our bodies are kind of gross and disgusting, and this thing that, like, I remember back in the day, what was it? Anything that bleeds for more than 3 days and doesn't die is a problem. It's just stuff like that was just so childish that we grew up with. The other thing is that we've always, to your point about testing and studies, we've always been treated as like smaller men. Like that's how science has looked at it. But what I found the other day that really shocked me is actually the reason why women don't often participate in scientific studies as a start is that they recognize how powerful our menstrual cycles are. And so they worry about our different stages of the month getting in the way of their results. So there is a real recognition in science about how powerful these hormones are, yet they're not studied very much. We don't talk about them very much, and the world is not built to cater for them.
Yeah. Well, so we are going to kick it off today. We've written 2 newsletters on the topic, one that's coming out tomorrow, one next week. And we're going to chat a little bit today about the 4 distinct stages, because for us, in order for us to biohack or period hack or optimize our lives around these cycles, first being menstruation, that is day 1 of your period and lasts 3 to 7 days. Oh my gosh, anyone is lucky who gets the 3. I get the 7. Follicular phase starts when your period ends, and that lasts 7 to 10 days. Ovulation is the middle part of your cycle. Anyone who has tried to have children or have children, that is the optimal time, of course. And then the luteal phase is the 10 to 14 days right before menstruation. And so that's, again, we start to experience different feelings due to hormones. So each stage brings its own superpowers. And we're going to chat about each stage today because then we'll know how to maximize, optimize for our best lives, both personal and in the workplace.
And I think the key here is that, I think we both know neither of us really loves getting our periods. I think we've both had some struggles. We'll talk about that a little bit, but there are some people who really struggle. And so just looking into some research, there was some Dutch research that just under 14% had taken time off from work during school or work or school during their period. And that was of like 30 something thousand women, and 3.5% that happened virtually every cycle. So we're not talking about small numbers when it comes to some of the really negative consequences. But one of the things that which makes it really tricky to have a conversation about this being a superpower, and we've been talking about it for the morning. But what I think is so interesting about it is that is because the world is built in a way that for consistency, because male hormones are consistent. Every 24 hours, they wake up in the morning, testosterone push, they're very active, excited, ready to go put in a day's work. As their hormones ease at the end of the day, they go into socializing and sleeping. Lovely for them. We're also expected to follow that same cycle, which means things like work, 1 week of the month really hectic and hardcore, and then the next week chiller. Like, we're just expected to be consistent, which is, I think, why a lot of these things become a real struggle for us, whereas we are more of a roller coaster in a way. So there is a good argument for just take to bed for 2 days of the month, because you're going to have another 2 days that you're going to be twice as productive as someone else, and we just have to learn to balance that.
Absolutely. And we think about work, and for some that is full-time sports, and I think this is a really evident part of cycles and working through these 4 phases. And when I think about growing up as an athlete, it just was something that was never even factored in, wasn't it? But a study found that elite female soccer / football players, 87% of them perceived reduced power and increased fatigue during that menstruation, which makes sense. Automatically, when I'm feeling a bit fatigued, I think, oh my gosh, I'm just losing so much iron, or what's the deal here? Turns out all hormones, not necessarily related to blood loss, but these are these people's full-time jobs, and they're being paid to play. And so, I mean, that is, I don't know, I just think that's a really nice representation of how might you optimize for your work. And I love that they did a study in this.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's hilarious as well, though, that I think even the studies that are done, the few studies that are done, don't seem to discount women on contraceptive pills or anything. So there's probably all sorts of muddying of the results.
So they'll be taking the pill, which influences their hormones, and they're included in the study?
Yeah. So I think the key point here is that this is a very underserved area, and let's hope more and more conversations, which we are seeing, drives more of a push, because we do know we control 85% of the world's spending. So it does make sense to spend a bit of effort on figuring out what we might need.
Yeah.
And I think on that sports front, it's just mind blown me the last few days, because we experience it, like you just said. There is a British Olympic athlete. She's a runner, Jessica Judd. She reckons her 3,000 meter time can vary by up to 15 seconds depending on the time of the month, which you and I, well, maybe not you, I would look at and go, okay, fine, whatever. But that's the difference between winning, coming completely last. So this is a huge impact, and it's so funny to me how little we talk about it, how little we know about it. I didn't even think about the 4 stages until the last couple of years. I only just thought about the 3 to 7 days a month that you actually get a period. And
ovulation. I think I have noticed some stuff during that period as well. Like, I've over the stage of feeling yuck, because I can feel yuck during my period, and I have noticed that phase, and sure enough, there's kind of scientific backing to what exactly we experience. So, but yeah, I agree.
So before we kick into the 4 stages, do we want to, just in the interest of having more open conversations about this, do you want to share some of your experiences, and I'll share mine, because I think it's useful that we normalize having these conversations.
Amazing. Well, first of all, I'd like to say I was a late bloomer. I was doing lots and lots of training in my life as a young person, which meant that I was very late in developing. In fact, I remember being dumped in year 10 because I was flat.
That kid really missed out.
Yeah, actually, he did see me a few years later, and I think
you could have had all this.
Anyway, I do have an athletic body, but as a result, I was the last of my friends to get my period. Not complaining, but as a result, for much of my life, even through having children, I had very regular periods. I might have a day or two of cramping. They were bang on the right time. They were relatively predictable, and it's really only been in the last year I've noticed. And we were chatting last night, was this a sign of perimenopause? I don't know. I am 46 years old, and I've just noticed lately my periods are they're funny because they're not heavier in flow, but everything feels heavier. It feels gross. Like you were like, we don't want to be seen as gross or whatever. I feel gross because I really feel I find myself more irritable. Where in the past I could just take a couple ibuprofen and get on with life. This just feels disruptive. So I would say in the last definitely 6 to 12 months, it's become a real nuisance. So I'm looking forward to digging into this.
Yeah, and I think we can probably talk about menopause. Well, we've got a bunch to cover off that another day.
Yes.
Yeah, my experience has been really interesting because I think I was going to say normal. I was pretty unfazed. But I went on the pill quite young, like in my 20s.
Yes.
So it was only my late 30s, so almost 20 years in, that I came off it. And I'd just experienced a very, standard, felt like it wasn't a big deal in my life. And then everything turned to custard and I felt sick and actually threw up a couple of times during my period or before it. But it was none of the symptoms that I felt awful. It was like so many bad things happened and I couldn't get any consistency in those symptoms. So I ended up going to a specialist because I was really stressed out that I had endometriosis or something that this pill had been masking. And he kind of looked at me after hearing all these awful symptoms and went, "You have PMS," which in my head has always been like a joke, like, oh, she's PMSing. And he's like, no, it is a serious set of symptoms.
Wow.
And we flippantly talk about them. And the thing that really made me so angry at the time is, firstly, no doctor had ever told me about how impactful the pill was on my body. And secondly, that I'd spent 20 years basically pushing down all the natural rhythms of my body, which is really, really awful. Now it's sort of coming right, but it took years. And every doctor was like, oh, it should come right after 3 months. That is such a, like, who knows? They probably haven't researched it. So, so it was like, I think it's not nothing, right? What we go through.
No, it's not. It's not. However, what this podcast is going to do is we're going to break down the cycles and just give some really practical tips of what we can do with a couple actions at the end. So shall I kick off menstruation? Because that's the one that for me is most prevalent and really noticeably changed in the last 6 to 12 months. So this is 3 for some, 7 for me, starting on the first day of your period.
Do you think all those dainty women with their bloop?
Do you know what's actually weird? And like, to be really open, I notice a little bit of spotting like a week out.
I'm a mess.
Do you too? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Kyla is like, I probably shouldn't say it, but the most consistent person in the world. She's like, in, out, and I'm like, a week out, I'm like, is it coming? Is it not? Is it coming? Is it not? What's happening? And she's like, what is wrong?
Because when you first get that, of course, it's like cancer. Like spotting means cancer. But anyway, yeah. So when really it's the first day of your period, some people will know it because they'll get cramps. Naturally, this is the first day that you start to menstruate. Just speaking hormones initially, this is when your estrogen and progesterone are really low, which means you're not producing as much serotonin and endorphins. And anyone who knows those hormones, they make us happy. Like, you're filled with endorphins and you're high, and serotonin is happy, and it's
all your happy hormones are gone.
Yeah, they are very depressed. You are feeling what you're feeling like because of these hormone fluctuations.
Incredible, right? Like, it actually is mind blowing that it's just like wiped out.
I know. And I don't know if you can take a happy pill, so we're going to hack it in other ways. I mean, not that I know of, but I guess that is the birth control pill, isn't it? They just keep it stable.
It keeps it stable, but I don't know if that's
So for the rest of us, this is the time during that let's just call it week-long period.
Kristen's fixated on the week.
Okay, I mean, for some longer, where you're probably not going to go remembering the soccer players. You might not go for the big hikes. You might not go for those big marathon runs or sprinting sessions or swim sessions. Easy exercise, restorative, kind of yoga, stretching, walking, getting outside, maybe some light swims, but just, like, this is the time where you can just go with the flow. Did you like what I did there?
I did like that.
Yeah. And so with respect to eating, you are losing blood. So absolutely, like, think about iron, think about vitamin C, and omega-3s. We all know some of those foods. So we're thinking
that's like a lot of fish and
like avocados, and that's brain food, because you're going to be feeling depressed without that serotonin. So thinking brain food and things like really rich colored fruits and veggies. This is the time, if you were going to go on a health kick, this is the week, right? Where you're just like, I'm going to take care of myself with some light exercise and great food.
I love this because we had the word noted down, restoration. And I was just actually thinking, this is almost the 4 seasons, right? Menstruation is winter. This is when you want to hunker down and restore and just look after yourself because it's all bleak outside.
Except for I pack in the lasagna and maybe unhealthy food.
Oh, see, that's funny. I used to think I did, but it's actually the week before
Opposite.
for me.
Got
I
it.
get incredibly hungry the week before.
Yes, nachos, bring it on. So the same thing with work. This is really interesting for me personally. Anyway, I am feeling a bit more brittle. I might have lower levels of patience. I might have feelings of angst or anger at some little tolerance for things. And so recognizing over this week, you're going to have little tolerance. So this is where, do you have a really great solo project that you can crack into that you've been putting off, some deep work? Block that out, even if it's, the worst day. If you can block that out in advance on your calendar and be like, deep focus time. Or many of you, I know you've got over 20 days of holidays in the bank. Book that time out now based on these days.
You should have to take sick leave, not holiday leave.
I know, right? Ridiculous. But put on your headphones, try and clear as many meetings if possible. I know life gets in the way, but just recognize how you're feeling is even just powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think we'll get to at the end starting to track this, but I love that as a really easy win of just every week, that week of every month, just try remove all the big scary meetings and stuff, because your next phase, the follicular stage, is 7 to 10 days, and that starts right after your period ends.
Yes.
So what I love about this is it's like almost the opposite. So this is spring, when everything's been thrown at it. You've got high amounts of estrogen coming into your body, so you're going to feel from that really awful feeling of like brittleness,
Depleted,
into motivated and energetic. So this is like a really good time from the food front to enhance those good feelings, like light foods, corn, oats, all that good stuff. I mean, everything's always about the good stuff, but protein to help restore your hormones because you've just had this real deficiency. So the chicken, salmon, cashews, eggs, all that sort of stuff. And you're probably going to feel a bit more intense when it comes to exercise, which is always an exciting stage to be at if you're like me, who always looks forward to the days that I'm excited about doing exercise. So this is for the power walkers. This is, if you're listening to this and walking, pick up your pace if you're in this stage, because you're probably feeling yourself. Maybe a bit of a light jog, cycle, or swim. You're not at your peak yet, you're just in spring, but you're feeling pretty good. This is the time to take all those meetings that you shouldn't have had last week and have them this week. Have your social events, have your brainstorming sessions. You also, because of all these hormones flooding into your body, you have increased mental clarity and creativity. Fantastic. Like this is what we mean about the superpower. Men's cycles are same every 24 hours, whereas this is where we are in a rocket ship. So this is when we've got problem solving skills, we can embrace complex tasks and dynamics. So this is where we can start to engage with people who maybe sort of slightly difficult dynamics or intense people, and really dive into some of this really cool stuff. And all that stuff last week that irritated you, that you sort of noted down and didn't complain about because you would have caused havoc, this is the time to start in solution mode and go, oh, that really annoying thing I noticed last week, how might we do something differently? So this to me is a fabulous time, and I'm excited about this one.
book all your brainstorming sessions and problem solving sessions.
Yeah,
love it. Great. Amazing. I'm excited about ovulation.
Are you? You want more babies?
I don't want more babies. But I have noticed, if there was another point in my cycle that I did notice, this would be it, where I'm feeling great. So this is, you actually get a surge of testosterone during this phase and increased estrogen, which gives you highest energy levels of the month. Actually, some studies have shown that we're most physically appealing during this stage, which kind of makes sense biologically if you're looking to mate. Animals,
because everything wants you to have those babies.
Have those babies.
I also like this because it's summer. If you're using the seasons, and I always feel my best skin in summer when I've got a light tan and I'm feeling like nice.
So like if you are looking to date, this is the time to set up your profile online. If that's the stage of life you're in,
you got 3 to 4 days to get those
dates. Or go for a date with your partner. I mean, this is it. But schedule that in now. Don't worry about Valentine's Day. Schedule it in on your day of ovulation. And look, what I also love about this one is you are rocking and firing on all cylinders at work. I'll get to some food and care during this time as well. But I think if you are going in for negotiation, this is the time to do it. If you are scheduling a presentation or a talk, this is the time, if you have the flexibility to do so. 100% studies actually have shown that promotions happen more often in this period than any other period. That was one thing I did find.
So likable.
You are so likable. We love being likable. In fact, are expected to be. So go ovulation. This is a great time to approach difficult conversations because you're feeling confident, you're feeling sure of yourself, and you have great communication skills. Those tough conversations, schedule them now as well. As for eating and exercise, great. Again, you're probably going to do some high intensity stuff at this point. So think about the fuel needed for those really high intensity. If you want to go hike a mountain, this would be the time, or a marathon. So again, like grains, veggies, lentils, all that, the great fuel that you need for energy. And if you want to try something new like kickboxing, or I do want to try, what's the tennis thing, Nat? What's the new pickleball. Yeah. Okay. So now I'm going to figure out pickleball when that is, and I'm going to try that. Even though a lot of old people do it, so maybe it's not considered high intensity.
No, I think it is because of the thwack.
Yeah, great. So that's ovulation. Fun.
So you got a couple of great days of the month. And I love this because I think even just seeing that has made me just really doubles down on that idea of consistency is not for us. Like those couple of days at the start, it's fine because you're going to more than make up for them as you go through these next stages. So the final stage is the luteal stage. I think that's how it's pronounced. And that's 10 to 14 days. So it's quite a long stage.
Yeah.
And it's right before menstruation. I think I'm in this stage now because I've noticed a few of these symptoms. So at the start of the stage, you're basically coming off the real high. So you're still going to feel pretty good, but you're going to notice that your hormones drop from their peak. And so you will start to sort of fall into the slow slide or the quick slide to menstruation. You're going to experience PMS, premenstrual syndrome here. So that can include a lot of discomfort, anger, some depression, anxiety, as well as hunger and cravings, which is one of my symptoms.
Hardcore.
I just wake up, when was it? Saturday. I woke up and I was like, nothing will stop the flow of the food to my mouth.
And it's not great food either, is it?
Oh, no. I just wanted to eat absolute junk food. Yeah. And but then I just learned to, because I am trying to do a bit more of this period hacking, I just went like, this is 2 days of the month. Like, go with it. You're feeling it. Have the food because you're going to have other times where you are like living off fresh veggies and stuff.
Yeah.
You are going to have low progesterone levels. And so there is a charming combination that comes out of this, which is you're going to feel tired, sudden tiredness as well. So just out of the blue, bit of tiredness. And also you're going to have disturbed sleep, which is really, really great. So one of the little extras here is magnesium. So you can get it from things like spinach, almonds, milk, dark chocolate.
Or even
my
a pill.
preference.
Vitamin.
Yeah, or pop a pill. And then you can have some leafy greens and broccoli to help boost up those progesterone levels too. So that's actually to me quite a solid tip, is to maybe go buy some magnesium to help with the sleep. Lots of water, because you might feel a bit bloated and brain fog and all those other PMS symptoms. Fish, obviously, always good with those fatty acids. And we've got a note here, sneak in some emotional eating, because honestly, go for it.
Yeah.
Because the stage is sort of slowly sliding down into a funk, you'll just keep a track of your exercise, and just when you're feeling less energetic, start with the lower intensity stuff. And same with work. This is probably in some ways the worst time. We think it's menstruation, but it's actually, this is where you're feeling that brain fog and fatigue. And I think I noticed this, remember when I did that talk and flunked it on stage back in Denver, and just kept, like, I forgot my words about 4 times, and then afterwards I was like, I was in this stage, I just had total brain farts. So the trick here is to work in concentrated bursts. So no staring at your laptop screen for 8 hours. Give yourself a 2-hour deadline to get something done, and then take a break and then do something else. So just try and really complete those shorter admin tasks, but like, give yourself breaks between work this week, and you will get more done than if you just try and sit there for the full work day.
Yeah, I like the fact that this is the time to do the knock off the to-do list. That's quite interesting. I haven't experienced this phase learning about these phases. I will now going forward, but
Pay attention.
Yeah, but that week of menstruation for me is just killer at the moment.
That's the one you're feeling.
It's real killer.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually think this one is my painful one because we were at a Super Bowl party yesterday at Kristen's house. There was just a bunch of us women hanging out, dancing, watching Super Bowl, having about 12 conversations at once. And you leaned over to me at one point being like, I can't keep track. And I was like, I'm just doing I'm playing my own game because I'm got the brain fog. I'm like, I can't keep track. Like at this stage, I need to like, give me one thing to think about. Context switching becomes a lot harder. So I just have learned to go, don't try. Whereas like in other phases, I'm like, I am context switching like mad. This is not the time for it. So I just focus on what I need to focus on. So I feel like that helps a little bit with the tiredness too, because you're not... Because I think sometimes the problem for us is we judge ourselves and we go, well, I could do this last week. Why can't I do it this week? And we feel miserable and like we failed. But it's actually, for me, it's just such a relief to be like, it's not me, it's my body. Well, it is me, but it's what is meant to happen.
Yeah, and I love that. And then the messier thing on top of this is what is perimenopause, and that is getting messy. So
I think we both have a personal interest in finding out.
Oh my gosh, we'll be going through it with all y'all. But the reason we did want to talk about this is because Powrsuit is all about getting women together and talking about things we don't talk about. One of the biggest observations and surprises we have when we do power sessions is that women often feel alone, which shocks us because as extroverts, we're quite used to chatting and dumping our problems on others and connecting with others. But so many are navigating the workplace and their professional careers themselves all on their own and are just shocked when other women feel just like them. So the same thing with this, our hope is that we can start chatting about these things in the workplace. Thankfully, menopause chats are starting at the workplace. I hope this will be the next pillar to be discussed. However, if you don't want to chat about it with management yet, great place to chat about it with colleagues and get a sense of your teammates and how everyone's going through their month and just saying, this is the phase I'm currently at. You understand now what's happening with me here.
Yeah, I really like that. I mean, I think there's some cool workplaces that have the four, like a different color for each stage, so every woman can have it, so you know how to interact. But I think even if that's not an option for you, you have control over some things, and that is how you manage your calendar, how you plan your day. We talk a lot about taking that 30 minutes on a Friday to plan your week. If your next week is one of those tougher weeks where you're not feeling so social and energetic, how do you plan out your week to make sure you're giving your body the rest it needs so that you're at your top performance in the weeks that you are going to be performing at your peak? Because it's sort of what we talk about, playing to your strengths. There is no point trying to wrangle 1% more productivity out of the weeks that you're feeling not so great. If you can use those times to get to the point that on your great weeks, you're getting 50% more productivity because you're rested, you've looked after yourself, you're going to nail it.
Yeah. And that was one of my big actions that I'll just jump to now because that's a great segue. Thank you, Nat. Was if you're like me, the cycle is happening to you. And I think this is a great time to take back control. I signed up to an app called Flow. I'm not promoting them at all.
Hashtag
I'm sure there's
spawn. No,
yeah, I'm
not
sure
hashtag spawn.
I'm sure there's a number of them.
Hashtag open to spawn.
That is the one that my daughter happened to be using, and I hopped onto it. It is free. When you log the first day of your period, you can log symptoms. Naturally, you're just handing over all sorts of data, but it also gives you some value in return where it actually can track those cycles for you. Then you can go to your calendar and do some planning. So the action is consider signing up to one of these apps, start to log your cycle over the next month or two, and you'll start to get a sense of the phases that you're in, what's working and not working for you, and then you can take action with your calendar.
And I think the only caveat to that, because I know there are certain countries in the world that have had some pretty big changes to abortion regulation, and that led to quite a warning for women to not use those apps because that data could showcase some meta information that may indicate whether or not they were pregnant. Easy hack to get around that, and I think it's what Kyla does as well, is just put in a note in your calendar just to sort of keep track of some of those things. So that's a way potentially around it if you're in a country where it might not be as safe to have that data available.
I just want to raise one last thing, and it is flexible work. And I think it's outrageous that we're moving away from flexible work after COVID. And it's this big backlash. And I get return to office. We're going to be grappling with some of these things and how do you build culture and are we remote and whatever. We will be dealing with this. Fine. No one's got it sorted out. Huge workplace movement. It's going to take us a decade to figure it out. However, regressing from flexible work, outrageous. And this just again underlines how we require that. You know, the times where we might, why sit in a bum on seat at an office if we're incredibly unproductive, whereas other times we might just be smashing it and need to be doing collaborative meetings. I think it's insane.
I mean, you got to get no disagreement here.
Yeah. So that
it just goes to show that 9 to 5 workday was designed well before we participated in offices.
But at minimum, starting to chat about these things is really great. So we hope we've kind of broken the seal on that for some of you. Hopefully you'll be nodding your head along with this. And if you are starting to track or you do have some hacks as it relates to your cycle, share with us. hello@powrsuit.com. We love hearing from you.
Subscribe to the newsletter. Keep an eye on LinkedIn, Instagram, and listen into our podcast.
Chat to you soon.
Bye.